Mr. Mayor, we're now live, so okay to start.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Welcome to Snowy Valleys Council's ordinary meeting of the 16th of July 2020, which is held via video link. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay respect to elders past and present. This meeting is live streamed on Council's website to allow the community to follow Council debates and decisions. Members of the public participating in the meeting agree to have their name, image, voice and personal information, including name and address, recorded and publicly broadcast. Snowy Valleys Council does not accept liability for any defamatory remarks or inappropriate comments that are made during the course of a meeting. Any part of the meeting that is held in closed session will not be streamed. Please ensure that all mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting, and no recording of voice or images is permitted. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the area. I'm sure we can all do that. Temporary provisions under section 447A of the Local Government Act. Council is currently operating under the temporary provisions of section 447A of the Local Government Act, which allows for online meetings, and the provision of the Act takes precedence over any conflicts with the adopted Snowy Valleys Council Code of Meeting Practice. Thank you, councillors. Moving on. We have no apologies or leave of absence. Do we have any?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No. Declarations and pecuniary interest, councillors. Councillor Cross.
Just to note that when we talk about the Riverglade Caravan Park under confidential, I'm a personal friend of Peter Leniger, who put in the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. And you will be remaining in the meeting?
I will remain in the meeting.
And you will be voting?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. There's no public forum. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the 18th of June. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cross, Councillor Wright. And anything arising from those minutes, councillors?
The Regional Health Advisory Committee was one matter that's brought up which wasn't concluded. Wish to move a motion related to health services in relation to, if you'd like me to read it out.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Yes, if you could read that out. Yeah,
this is in view of the rapid changes in the pandemic that's going on at the moment. That Snowy Valleys Council established a small public health committee which focuses on rapid local responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. That's what the motion is.
That's it. Councillor Pritchard, thank you for that. Would you like us to bring that up rather than do it now as urgent? As an urgent motion?
I'd like to move it up as an urgent motion, but whatever suits you, but it's just my board.
No, that's fine. We'll adopt these minutes and then we'll move it as an urgent motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from those minutes, councillors? Nothing? Put the motion, all in favour of adopting those minutes. That's carried unanimously. Which brings us to just moving on. I'll just get through this. Excuse me while I scroll. So that brings us to Councillor Pritchard's motion, which he has read out. Can we have that on screen?
I can't put that on screen. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, at the moment. Would Councillor, I can move to do that. If Councillor Pritchard can reread it, I will type it.
Move that the Snowy Valleys Council establish a small public health committee.
Yes, anything else there?
Which focuses on which focuses on rapid local responses to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, I'll just share. That's it, Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you.
I'll just share that screen. Just make that a little bit bigger. Can councillors read that at all?
Yes, I have that.
Yep.
Councillor, well, I'll accept that that's an urgent motion, given the climate we're in. Councillor Pritchard, speaking to the motion.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. The epidemic's going developing at a great rate of knots in Australia, and it's on track to go the way that it has in America. The Premier yesterday feels that we should be going for a suppression response to it, or rather than an elimination. And the government's making recommendations that all the time, which have effects on different council areas, and are not really. Some are more applicable to rural councils, some more to the city councils. And I think that we need to be agile in our responses. We can't wait a month, let alone a week, I think, for us to respond. The present outbreaks show the urgency of this matter. The community in general has become quite complacent to this on, off, and not getting a bit of pandemic fatigue with it all. So I think we need to be in a situation where the local council can make comments publicly and try and encourage our community to comply with the governmental directions. It's not, we certainly have got an area health service, which is very, very good, but it's not very agile. And if you look at the local government functions, one of the major functions is that council's involved in public health, and there's no argument about that with water sterilisation and sewerage and that, and restaurant inspections and things like that. But this COVID epidemic is a public health issue, a major public health issue, probably the biggest in our lifetimes. And we need to have we need to be in a position where we can make immediate recommendations to our communities. We perhaps don't have the legislative power to order people to do things, and I don't think we should. But I think if there's something that we can see that our community is slipping back on or need reminding about, I think we should be in a situation to act immediately, not come to the next council meeting or get the local area health service to concentrate on our local community. Certainly we have local health advisory committees at the hospitals, but these are community people, and they don't really have the expertise, I think, or the agility to make pronouncements. They're parts of the local area health service. I think we need something locally where made up of basically a few councils who are interested in it, and perhaps somebody from the primary health network and somebody from perhaps from the area health service. But the mayor be empowered to come out strongly and say, we advise you. For example, it might be to advise people to wear masks when they go to the supermarkets, or even if not going to that extent, suggesting to people that that may have to be introduced shortly. Say the government decides that masks should go to the supermarket, masks should be worn on people going to the supermarket tomorrow. People need to be prepared. They need to buy a mask. They need to work out how to handle it. And so that when the government makes a decision to progress the attack on the virus, that they can do it instantly. I think it needs constant refreshing. And as I started at the beginning, the mayor in the United States, the mayor of all the towns are leading the charge. The health departments are lagging a bit behind. But anyway, that's what I think we should do, is having a small committee of council which has the mayor, a couple of councillors, and perhaps one or two from the area health services.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. And certainly, I agree, we should be, as councillors and leaders in the community, we should be mirroring and modelling what's being suggested by the health authorities. And I would certainly like to see shop owners and people to have hand sanitizer and everything outside their shops, and some shops are doing it really well, and some not so well. So if we could have that, that would be really good. Any speakers against? Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 10.1. Thank you, Councillor Pritchard, for your concern, and thank you for bringing that up. That's very, very good. 10.1, Integrated Planning and Reporting Suite for adoption.
Page 22, councillors.
3 recommendations there. Councillor Isselman and Councillor Lata.
Move all 3.
Moving all 3.
Thank you.
Anyone like to speak on those? Councillor Isselman.
Just a compliment to the staff, if I could please, Mr Mayor. Major exercise, very important documents to us as the Snowy Valleys Council. And what we have here are documents that are standalone and in high regard in comparison to many other councils. And I highly, highly praise the staff for achieving that.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Ham.
We go into committee about this, Mr Mayor?
If you're moving that way.
Yes, please.
Seconder. Councillor Cross, all in favour? Councillor Ham, we're in committee.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There were just, I agree with what Councillor Wisserman said. A lot of work and whatever's gone into this. There's just 4 points that I'd like to just mention. I don't know if they can be changed at this stage, but the first one is 1.2.2, which of course is about childcare. It says meet national childcare quality standards. I'd like that to be in future, if not this time, to work towards exceeding in all areas. We've got really outstanding children's services, and to just meet the quality standards now, I think we can do better, and I think we are doing better, so I think we should reflect that in the document. And then very delighted in 1.8.1 is the commencement stage of Snowview Estate, and I know that the Tubbarabba community are going to be absolutely delighted about that, so thank you. And 1.8.2, continue to provide assisted living facilities at Rotary Place. I was under the impression, and maybe I could talk to the Director of Infrastructure, that there might have been some commencement of building there as well.
Mr. Holton.
Yes, there was a requirement for a business case to be prepared, which wasn't funded in last year's budget. So we've carried that action forward into the following year. This is for the not the assisted living units, but the retirement village type units. So there was a requirement for a business plan or business case to be prepared for developing that, which unfortunately wasn't undertaken last year because it didn't get funded. So we've carried that action forward.
Okay, so sorry, just to clarify, the business plan is going to happen, but there won't be any building, or there's nothing budgeted for that this year.
Nothing budgeted to build a new unit or units.
Thank you. Sorry. And then 2.5.1 is about the Country University Centre, which is in our advocacy plan, and we've been talking about it now the 3 years I've been on council. The progress measure there is advocacy activities be undertaken. I think our progress measure should be community committee formed, because wherever you talk about CUCs, it's across the board, everyone goes, it has to be community driven. And I do understand that council has to help that, but I think that's where we're falling down and not getting where we're going. I don't know if Mr. Holton wants to say anything about CUCs.
Look, I'm not sure whether Mr. Holton wants to say, but I'm certainly a keen advocate for the CUC, and I would agree with you there that we've reached the stage where we need a committee to push it forward. We have approached some large organisations to see whether they'd like to co-fund it, because the federal government hasn't stepped up yet. I know the federal government has stepped up in a lot of other areas, but let's see what happens there. But certainly there is one large organisation within the region that is keen to put some money there, but we just need some other partners as well. So I agree with you. If we can get a committee going, I think we can start to the next stage of the Country University Centre.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CEO, these things we're talking about, do they get changed in the operational plan? Was the plan as set as is?
Through the chair, Councillor, you would have to amend the resolution slightly to incorporate those changes. As we're discussing, I'm working up a document there, and towards the end of the committee section, I can put that on display so that you can discuss that and see what changes you want included in there. I'll do that as a track change document so that you're able to view what the resolution originally moved by Councillor Isselman and Councillor Lata was in comparison to what amendments are there.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's my last point.
Can I just finish on the Country University Centre? I would envisage that it doesn't have to be a council committee. So it could be a committee working sort of as a satellite of council, basically, and utilising some council assistance, but it doesn't have to be a committee council. I would see that as a better outcome.
Yeah, I agree.
And
the final one I wanted to comment a bit, the last and final, is 3.5.2, which is a continued focus on weed eradication within the LGA. And look, after the bushfires, I think it's indisputable that blackberries have fueled those have fueled the fires. And at the moment, within Snowy Valleys, we have a policy that says control blackberries. And I think we've seen an example of what happens when we control blackberries is people look at it and say they're controlled, they're not on the road. In fact, a lot of people have been saying this is our chance to eradicate blackberries. Our blackberries are tiny now. They're, come spring, they'll be sprayable. Our progress measure there is weed eradication activities delivered. I think that's really too broad for something like blackberries. I'm not sure how to word it. But I think blackberries, and through the Ag Recovery Committee meeting, it just comes up over and over again. So when it says continued focus on weed eradication, whether we put in particular blackberries or just some wording to say that we are aware that the blackberries were a huge fuel base during the fires.
Councillor Wright, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to just add to that it's not only the blackberries, but it's the Phalaris and all that sort of stuff on the roadside verges. I think we've got to have something in there about, because those roadside verges were just a tinder for the fires, and we all knew that. A year ago we talked about it, we did nothing about it. Well, the LLS did nothing about it, but I think we should be advocating our roadside verges kept under control somehow or other. I don't know if this is the right forum for it, but it's something we've got to be working on. Got to be better there.
Councillor Isselman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just taking everyone to page 17, 2.1.2. pursue identified funding opportunities to complete long-term land use planning for our towns and villages. And in progress measurement, it says funding secured. It suggests there that the funding's already available. And I don't think it is at the moment. Is that correct?
Mr. Halton?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have some funds set aside for in next year's budget that were provided under the project funding through the amalgamation process that will be applied to harmonising our local environment plan. This is on the back of passing our local strategic planning statement. Additionally, another project in there will be a rural land use strategy to look at the rural lands in and around our towns. Other strategic planning initiatives we will need to seek funding for those. Ones that may be specific to the villages and towns, and that we will need to work and find funding to undertake any specific planning for those ones.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that means that people can't misinterpret the fact that that funding secured is to help do a planning strategy for the cannery site in Batlow.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is not necessarily specific to that, and the measurement of success will be the achievement of the funding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Yeah, just picking up on that blackberry issue, I wonder whether there might be an opportunity. I know we've spoken about it previously, but perhaps adding that. I think it's such a significant problem, especially in our Shire, that it should almost be a priority on our advocacy plan to lobby for perhaps a partnership or an alliance with people like State Forest, National Parks, the timber industry, to work with somebody like the CSIRO or something to actually lobby for a some sort of infrastructure here to develop a long-term strategy to eradicate the blackberry. You know, I think it would be such a significant thing, not only for us but probably the nation. And it's something that, you know, is obviously a pandemic, you know, of sorts in relevance to what it's causing from an emergency services point of view, but for the landholders as well. So we certainly don't want to be fueling any more fires. So I think it's something that we could really strongly advocate for.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. It's certainly something that we have looked at in the past, and I've had discussions with the Deputy Prime Minister on this, and also the Graham Centre in Wagga, and I think that's something that we could continue to lobby for. And yes, you're correct. Maybe it should be something we could add to our advocacy plan. Councillor Pritchard.
Could we get funding under the bushfire recovery program at all? After all, these have been exacerbated enormously by the bushfires. And we're also looking at finding simple jobs for a lot of the unemployed people, and going around with a knapsack spray, you know, would be one way of going ahead. So to look at the unemployment and for the bushfire recovery.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, those two items just suggested are well within the scope of our items currently in the bushfire recovery section of our advocacy plan. So we can certainly take those on note and make sure that they're included in our scope, and certainly we can draft some correspondence off to various funding bodies and ministers as part of our advocacy program.
Thank you.
Councillors, anything further from that suite of plans? Councillor Cross.
I really applaud the way that these documents have been put together, and they really reflect true consultation through us. I know we've worked enormously hard on getting these documents, and I think one of the challenges that really needs to be noted is that how we've been mindful of what the community expects, what the service levels they want, but balancing that against sustainability with and with all the additional expenses that we've had through the droughts, through the bushfires, through the floods, and now through COVID, you know, we're really mindful of keeping that balancing act between service expectations, but being sustainable as well. And I think that really needs to be stated.
Thank you, Councillor Cross. Councillor Ham, you're moving out of it.
No, I'm afraid not.
Just the last.
I just wanted to say something about the long-term financial plan, and if
Yep.
I could talk, maybe if I could ask the CFO, I just on page 13, and the report there is listed as unsustainable scenario. Just and it certainly looks unsustainable. Just wondering, like, that's been put in as, if she could explain why that's been put in there. Is this to say that we should be putting our rates up? I just think that's pretty important, the explanation for that.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. CFO?
You, Mr. Mayor, I'm just trying, what page were you referring to,
We're
Councillor?
page 13 of the long-term financial plan.
Yep. Okay, let me just grab that. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, this is the second scenario. We have a base plan that we want to achieve, and that is obviously where council wants to go, which is the first 4 scenarios that we put in this plan. And the unsustainable scenario is actually a legal requirement. We have to show what is happening if we don't go down. For example, what we have put in is our sustainability plan, all the actions that we want to take out of the sustainability plan. If we don't do that, this is the alternative of what will happen.
Well, it's pretty black and white, isn't it?
Anything further? No. Someone like to move that we go out of committee? Councillor Ham, Councillor Larder, all in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. Which takes us to those three recommendations. And just on point 3, I'd like to thank the community members who took the time to make those submissions, and once again thank them for their diligence and bringing things to the front of our mind. So there we go. We've got a couple of amendments there. The mover and second are happy with those?
Yes, I'm fine.
I'm fine if I was second.
Yes, it's a bit hard to remember that far back. Okay, with those amendments, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Yes, that's yep, that's everyone. Thank you. Moving on, councillors, to where am I up to? 10.2, fees for councillors and mayors for the 2021 financial year.
On the electronic copy, councillors, that's on page 28.
28. Councillor Cross, Councillor Benjamin. Given that there's no change, I don't imagine there'd be a lot of discussion. Councillor Cross, anything to say?
I think it's a very prudent decision to maintain it as it is, given the current situation.
Thank you. Put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Making of the 2021 rates and charges. There's quite a raft of recommendations there that all follow on from each other.
Councillors, that's page 31 of the electronic agenda.
Mover. Councillor Ham. Councillor Larder. Councillor Ham.
I was just wondering if we could get the CFO to speak on this.
CFO?
You, Mr. Mayor, this is the annual repeat of making the rates and charges. It is a legal requirement that we put them in this order and actually name them, but it is basically a repeat of the revenue policy that you adopted under the IP&R motions.
Thank you, CFO.
Could you talk on the SVR for Hume? I know it's in there, but just simplify that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the SRV for Hume expired on the 30th of June 2020 and has been removed from our rates revenue. So our total rates revenue has reduced by about $630,000.
Thank you, CFO. Anything further on those rates? And can we have a clarification on harmonisation from the CEO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the harmonisation process, we've commenced our community consultation on that. It is the harmonisation discussion is about the following year, so that's not for this year. It is for starting in July 2021.
Thank you. Councillors, put the motion all in favour. Councillor Pritchard, in favour. Thank you. That's everyone. Statement of investments.
Page 30. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's page 37 for the councillors on the electronic agenda.
One recommendation there. Councillor Risselman, Councillor Larder, Councillor Risselman.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Anything further? Any questions? Put them up. You have a question, Councillor Ham? No, you're voting yes.
No, I've got a question.
No, yes. Yes, no.
I probably will vote yes, but could I ask about the Hume and Hovell track before I do? And that's probably a question for the Director of Infrastructure. But I notice Hume and Hovell track being mentioned there. Is this money bushfire recovery money, and is the Hume and Hovell track, looking like being open again? Yeah, just wondering what it's about.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we were successful in being awarded a contract from the Crown for the upgrade of some bridges along the Hume and Hovell walking track, and that was pre-fire. We were fortunate that negotiations with the Crown enabled us to continue with that contract following the fires, and we've organised the pre-fabrication of those bridges, noting that the installation won't proceed until the track's made safe. In regard to the track being made safe post-fire, from what I understand, the Crown is still seeking funding to do that, and we're certainly assisting the Crown wherever we can, and part of that is making ourselves available to help out with opening and making the trail safe when they get the funding to do that.
Thank you. Anything further?
Yes, I've got a question for our Director of Infrastructure about I note, and before that, it's pleasing to see that we actually made some money on our investments this month, which is really good. But I've got a query about the 505,000 Ks that was spent on guardrails. Was this a result of the bushfires, and are we able to recover that in what seems like an enormous amount of money for guardrails?
Director?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, my understanding is that is fire recovery work and is refundable through the natural disaster recovery funding arrangements. So we'll be making claims under those arrangements as we progress through the recovery works, which includes the guardrails.
Thank you. Nothing further?
Just one to Danny. Sorry.
I was just going to ask a question in regard to in particular, how we've had to catalogue all that stuff. and the cost to council, an imposition of having to take photographs of some 4,000 or whatever they are posts, which to me just seems absolutely criminal that the state government would be requiring us to take on that level of governance regarding guideposts. I mean, it's just absolutely obscene that we're getting our staff to do that.
Director.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, the process is or does to us seem very frustrating. That's correct in that, yeah, every item of work that we do, including replacement of a guidepost, has to be recorded and demonstrated with photos, which are submitted through Transport for New South Wales, who are administering the natural disaster funding arrangements. So that is what we are required to do. Yeah, it is a time impost on us, and we have engaged an additional staff member to help with some of that work, and we are hoping to claim that time through the recovery funding arrangements. But it is taking up a fair bit of staff time and effort.
It's hard to believe that some bureaucrat is requesting that. I mean, I can't believe that the Premier or any of the cabinet ministers would be expecting that we're going to take 4,000 pictures of separate guideposts. I mean, that is just absolutely stupid.
I will take that as a statement, Councillor Lada. Councillor Esserman was next, and then Councillor Smith.
Just a note of pedanticness on page 38. It references rail trail. I'd really be happier if it had Tumbarumba to Rosewood rail trail, so that there's no confusion.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Noted. Councillor Smith.
The other expenditure that I'd like clarification on, the Alpine Way works. That's quite a large expenditure. That's claimable at all?
Director.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. That's works that we're undertaking on behalf of Transport for New South Wales, and fully recoverable plus on costs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. So this is page 40, endorsement of the Council Committee's framework for public exhibition. 3 recommendations there. Councillor Councillor Cross. Councillor Ham.
I'd just like to talk about this and really encourage the general or people on councils to actually read this. I think if I wanted to add something in there, I would add, and I know the councillors agree with me, that we are lost without volunteers, and that we really need to look after our volunteers well. And I think I'd like a section in there to support our volunteers and just what an integral part they are of our whole Snowy Valleys Council. And I think that needs to be put in there. And I also think we need a bit of how council relates to committee members, because there seems to be a bit of a, saying that this committee failed to do something or something like that. It's just been a lack of knowledge, and that needs to be handled in a much gentler way, and in a way that we really celebrate and are so grateful for people for doing this part of council for us.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Councillor Cross.
Just to add to that, I fully endorse what Councillor Ham is saying. I think rolling this out is going to require a great deal of sensitivity, because I think there will be a bit of angst in the community about expectations, and but I also think that we need to reinforce to our committees that this is about protecting them from things like fraud and non-compliance. So whilst it may seem onerous in the beginning, it really is for their protection.
Thank you. Anything further? Put the motion all in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you. So 44, page 44, 11.1, management reports, acknowledge council assistance during fire response and recovery. So we hope that we haven't forgotten anyone there, but certainly we were, there was an embarrassment of assistance at times, and we were just so grateful for the compassion and the opportunities that were given to us, and also the financial assistance from some of those councils that has been put to very good use. Mm. Councillors, do we have a movers? Councillor Isselman and Councillor Wright. Councillor Isselman.
Just to say, yes, I endorse what you've said. An amazing support from other councils to our local area in relation to the bushfires, and thank you to council staff for the disbursement of those funds as well.
Councillors, could I just draw attention to Murrumbidgee Council, which is not listed there, that the community of Jerilderie raised $11,000 that went directly to the, didn't come through council, but went directly to the Batlow Rotary Club for their youth up there. So that's one that we really need to add and make sure that we get a letter off to them.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, the councils listed aren't included in the resolution, so we will add the Murrumbidgee Council to that list.
And the community of Jerilderie. Thank you. Anything further? Nothing? Put the motion all in favour. That's unanimous. Thank you. Page 47 of Talbingo Cycling Tracks Licence Agreement with C with Snowy Hydro. Councillor Cross, Councillor Wright, Councillor Cross.
I think this is an absolutely fantastic concept that these Talbingo cycling tracks has taken on board. It's so proactive. Good luck to them. I think it's absolutely great to see people out there doing stuff for their local communities. So I think it'll be a really good thing for Talbingo to have.
I concur there, Councillor Cross. It's certainly a template that other communities could embrace, especially given the way they've done this. They've done it very actively, and they've got everybody aboard, and yeah, they've been very successful to date in a very short time. Councillor Ham.
I was just wondering through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could, Mr. Holton could just, it's there in the report, but just explain a little bit more about the financial implications and the liability that council may carry with this.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. For you, Mr. Mayor. So if council determines to enter into this licence agreement with Snowy Hydro, the assets created on the land in question will be incorporated into council's asset register, and as such will be required to be depreciated, and that depreciation will end up on our balance sheet. There is a cost of approximately $3,000 per annum associated with the maintenance of these facilities within the Talbingo Township, but the Talbingo Mountain Bike Club are willing to enter into an MOU with council, and in that MOU they will bear the cost and actually carry out the maintenance on both of those facilities. Once the assets are on our asset register, like any other public recreation facility, and I would give the example of the Tumbarumba pump track and the Tumut pump track, these facilities will be covered and included by councils in council's insurance policies, and so therefore public liability and things like that will be covered off in that way.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Isselman?
I certainly agree with what Kate has said in relation to the initiative that this group has shown as a model to many other of the villages, where lots of people come up with wonderful ideas about things that can be very supportive and innovative for small communities. But we really need these people to get together as a committee and drive forward with an object and a goal in place that's done by the community. And this is an extremely great example of how a community proactively can make things happen. And so let's hope a lot of other communities have got people there that have got great ideas and need to find a committee and get going with them.
Thank you, Councillor Isselman. Anything further?
Just a last comment, Mr. Mayor. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Talbingo became the new Derby, or Derby, I should say?
Derby. Yep. Thank you. And for those that don't know where Derby is, it's in it's an old tin mining town in northern Tasmania, just out from Launceston. Put the motion. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. Unanimously. Management reports 11.3, page 51 of 57. Receive the report on the Regional Trail Master Plan and note the report on the Regional Trail Master Plan. Before we do move, can I just ask that whether we can include in this Trail Master Plan, whether we can include the Whitewater Park, which is basically a water trail, and we haven't mentioned anything for our horse riders, so maybe we could include bridle tracks as well, or trails.
Through the chair, Mr. Mayor, we can do that.
Thank you. Do we have a mover then with those additions? Councillor Larter. Councillor Benjamin, thank you. Councillor Larter.
Oh, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's obviously the type of infrastructure we've been hoping to get for our communities, and hopefully, you know, with projects like that Whitewater Park and the Talbingo mountain bike project, you know, that they could all be world-class facilities that will attract a wide range of interest. As well as just community people, you know, perhaps wanting to do show jumping or eventing or whatever the case may be.
I think the other advantage that it gives is it gives everybody, both people for these and people against, it gives everybody a chance to have a say ultimately, and they'll all be recorded. Councillor Wright, you had something?
Can I just ask on item 2, is that not the report or note the report?
Note. Well done. Note.
Okay. Just a typo.
Just a typo.
Well, it probably should be fixed.
I'm sure it will be. It's noted. Put the motion. All in favour?
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to show those changes?
Yes, I think before I count those votes, yes.
Councillors see that?
Yep. Okay, if we can, everyone can see that? Okay. All in favour? It's unanimous, thank you.
To me, have a lake report there in the management report.
Okay, we'll do the Riverina Regional Library first on page 55. Councillor Cross, Councillor Isselman. Any comment, Councillor Cross?
Yes, I'd like to congratulate Kristen Toomey, our Manager of Customer and Technology. She has filled in the vacancy for the executive. She was elected. There were 2 people put forward and she was elected overwhelmingly, which is really great for us. The other thing I'd like to comment on is the management plan has come out, and people will probably be very pleased to see that fines have been removed. So
Yeah.
You won't have to pay for that overdue book, which I think is a lovely social initiative.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, I draw your attention to the late report, which is
Councillors, that's on a separate document. L1 streetlight LED replacement. And it's on page 5 of the late agenda, electronic page 5.
so, councillors, there's 9 recommendations there.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, there is a duplication in the recommendations 5 and 8. So if the mover would like to move the recommendations excluding recommendation 5.
Thank you. Do I have a mover?
Go down here.
All right, Councillor Smith and Councillor Cross. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Councillor Smith.
Yes, look, I was very interested to note that this is actually going to be paid for in 9 years. So that's certainly a worthwhile saving. Of course, the savings will continue a long time after that. So as well as improving our lighting right throughout the Shire and all the villages, this is going to save us money in the long term, and that's always a good thing.
And Councillor Smith, it'll save energy as well. So it's
that's always a good thing too.
It's a bonus.
Mm.
Councillor Cross.
This is a really great thing. I went to a Smart Communities conference when I first became a councillor, and it's great to see finally we're getting to have our smart poles with our LEDs and bring us into line. I think it's really terrific. But I was really curious about why the difference between Cancoban and Tumut. Why is there so many lights in Cancoban and not in Tumut? I would have thought, being a bigger population, we would have more. So wondering if Director can clarify that, please.
I can answer it probably simply for you. Cancoban used to be a very, very large, quite a large town, and it's not anymore. And also the people who built Cancoban used to produce electricity. So that's
Makes
probably
sense.
the reason. But I'd be interested if one of the directors had anything different to say.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just clarifying in that table 4 in the report, when it refers to Cancoban, number of lights is 90, and it refers to Tumut CBD as 48. The Tumut CBD are only the pedestrian lights that council installed separate to the street lights. So just wanted to clarify that. We operate and maintain those lights outside of the essential energy agreement, and that's why they're referred to separately in the report. Very much intended to also upgrade those with the LEDs, but that'll be under a separate arrangement, not under the essential energy arrangement.
Thank you.
Director. Councillor Isselman.
Can I have a question to the director, please? The numbers there seem very light on in comparison, if it's for the whole of the Shire, for every town and village in the Shire, that there's only 1,200 lights. That seems very limited.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I've just checked in with our asset guys just to confirm that is the right number. It is consistent with our GIS system, with our Geographical Information Management System, and also with the maintenance agreement we have with Essential Energy. So they're the number of lights that are operated and maintained on behalf of council by Essential Energy. Please be aware that they don't cover things like the pedestrian lights that we just spoke about, car park lights, private lights, sporting fields, all those sorts of things. They're not This is purely just the street lights in your residential streets.
Thank you. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Ham.
I was just wondering, this is being funded through a commercial loan. If I could talk to the CFO about the loan, which he appears.
CFO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay.
Okay, by me.
So this is a commercial loan. Are we borrowing the whole 797,000?
Mr. Mayor, we will be aiming to borrow the entire amount, but it depends on what the best loan deal is at the time when we borrow.
Okay. Okay. So this is external. We're not taking it from our reserves or anything like this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will certainly be looking at whether an internal loan is an alternative to an external loan, but at this stage we haven't actually looked at it in detail.
Okay, so you'll get back to us on that.
And just another question for the CFO. There is no relevant reserve for this, is there?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there is no reserve, but this is savings, operational savings that have been budgeted as an expense. So we will be able to pay back the loan from the savings.
Thank you. Anything further, councillors? I'll put the motion. All in favour? It's carried. Councillors, that concludes the ordinary meeting. Just go back to...
Mr. Mayor, could I just raise something? I don't know whether it's a matter of urgency or not, but certainly something that, if it's not, that we could flag for the next meeting if you don't consider it urgent. But a number of residents have approached me about this Hume link project, this 500 kV power line that's going to be running apparently through numerous properties. The thing that concerns me, in addition to their concerns, is the fact that it's also proposed to go right next and adjacent to our airport, which we're obviously advocating for significant upgrades for with regard to emergency services. Now, to be placing a line of such magnitude in the vicinity of what will be a potentially major regional airport appears to be at odds with our council instructions. So I think we need to get some information on this, because I certainly am not privy to it. So it's obviously something that's going to loom up very quickly. I'd say that this has been kept off the radar on purpose, and you know, the companies involved are obviously wanting to slip this infrastructure in with as little fanfare as possible, but rest assured that's not going to be the case now.
Councillor Arter, yeah, look, I'll allow that as urgent. Might I say, they did meet with us, I think, in early March, but they didn't give us any indication apart from just a broad idea that the power was coming out from Arrival and sort of spanning out from there. So no specifics. So I think probably, given the community sentiment and also the need to do something quickly, we'll take it as an urgent motion. What's your motion?
Well, I'm happy for the General Manager to help us craft something, but I think we need to speak to the relevant Minister as a matter of urgency to get some clarification on what's proposed here.
I think the other thing we need is we need the routes, and we need the options as well, because we haven't really seen that properly.
Mr. Mayor, if I may have some general comment. We did have a presentation back in March, as you indicated, of a general nature. The indication at the time was that there would be general consultation from Transgrid with the landholders in the area. They would then form their proposal from there and put that down in writing and lodge for the approvals, of which there would be community consultation in that process. So the part of the contact with landholders at the moment is trying to ascertain some of their options around the exact track of that proposed line. So I might suggest that we invite Transgrid to present to us on any firming up of the options for the geographic location of those lines.
So that's your motion, Councillor Larder?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and I think it's even more relevant given the fact that you know the proposal, from what I understand, is within the confines of the airport precinct. You know, now we've got a large helicopter operation there on a permanent basis, and it's even larger during a fire crisis. So I think it would be, you know, a complete safety breach to be allowing that to be put through there.
Got to remember consultation, the word consultation, what it means. Maybe we need a better word than consultation. Well, we won't get agreement, but we should have something better than just lip service to our concerns.
So do I have?
Share the screen, councillors, if that's okay, and we can amend as we go along.
Could I add to that as a matter of urgency?
Well, I've agreed that it's a matter of urgency already.
Okay. Well, my urgency would be to grant Transgrid to so that we, you know, people are asking us what's happening, and we're just going, well, you know, we were given really vague advice.
I agree. It needs to be a matter of urgency in that motion.
Do you want to move that up front, councillors?
Yep. Or you can start with that if you like. As a matter of urgency, right to Transgrid.
Not our urgency, it's theirs.
Return that.
Yeah. Right to Transgrid, and as a matter of urgency, request.
Well, and the other thing is too, we don't want the PR spin doctor coming to give us the you know, we want the chief executive or someone of significance to actually turn up. You know, I'm not going to be sitting down to have some person from marketing give us some overview of, you know, how good this is going to be.
Hear what you're saying there.
And they'll use that as their consultation.
Councillors, are we happy with that?
Yep.
Should we be sending a letter to the Civil Aviation Authority and asking them for their opinion?
Yeah, I agree with that, Jeff.
Yeah. So we could involve all relevant authorities, or organisations as well, which could be the New South Wales farmers and the like.
Through the chair, may I request the council be careful that we acknowledge who's responsible for this, and that not create any confusion that council is responsible for any of the consultation in this process. So we may wish to invite and advise Transgrid of some other partners that have significant operations in our community to that presentation, but we maintain it very clear that Transgrid are responsible for the consultation with the community and the decision around that. We are facilitating a communication of information out to the community.
Yep. Okay, we happy with that?
Would it be appropriate if we included or CC'd, say, the Civil Aviation Authority into that letter?
I think we just invite them along.
Through the chair, we can certainly go into that detail, so the resolution can be implemented, and we can, in the Mayor's letter off to Transgrid, we can include CCs to various significant community groups so they're aware of what's happening. And certainly,
and I think maybe we should include the Deputy Prime Minister's aviation advisor in on that, and that way we can kickstart it from the top down.
Yes, can do.
Did I get a seconder for that?
No.
No, Councillor Ham. Thank you. Any further discussion? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Put the motion. All in favour? It's carried. Councillors, that concludes the ordinary council meeting. The Local Government Act provides that council may close to the public that part of the meeting which deals with matters of a confidential nature. Section 10.2 lists such matters. The grounds on which a meeting is closed to the public must be specified in the decision to close the meeting and recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Recommendation I have before me is that council move into confidential to consider the matters listed in the confidential section of the agenda in accordance with section 10.2 of the Local Government Act 1993 for the reasons specified. 13.1 Riverglade Caravan Park lease extension. Item 14.1 is confidential under the Local Government Act 1993. I think that should be 13.1. Section 10A2C as it relates to information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or processes to conduct business with council, and considers that discussion in the matter of in an open meeting would be on balance contrary to the public interest. Do I have a mover to move into confidential? Councillor Wright and Councillor Smith, all in favour? We'll move into confidential. Thank you.
Councillors, I will just stop the live feed while we go into confidential, and we will restart the live feed after we finish confidential.